Hey, what's good, Roughnecks fans, and welcome back to the Rough 'Em Up podcast. I'm your co-host, Cullen Watkins, and with me, as usual, the one, the only, A-Train Arlington Lane. How are you doing after, week 5 of the XFL?
I'm a little nervous now, man. First loss happened, we can't say undefeated anymore. And I don't know. I'm kind of indifferent on what's about to happen coming up in this second half of the season.
And that is what we're going to be covering today. Mostly, of course, we're going to be giving you a recap of the game against the Seattle Sea Dragons, as well as a preview of the upcoming matchup between the DC Defenders, which is this Monday. But we're also going to be going over the sort of situation now for the Houston Roughnecks after this first half of football going into the second half. And like you said, Arlington, for the first time as a Roughnecks fan, I'm nervous. I am. In 2020, I was not nervous about that team. This time around, though, what we saw against Seattle, I don't know. And Arlington, we talked about before we went on air.
Right.
Did that Seattle game, of course, we lost 21-14, for those who don't know, in Seattle. Did it expose the Roughnecks, or was it simply just an off game for the offense, let's say?
Yeah, we lost Jonte Kirkland for the season, so that's going to be a big hill battle. Defense did a good job getting 4 turnovers, 3 of them off interceptions off Ben DiNucci. So it's just at certain points in the game, we just couldn't stop them. And it's back to the big plays and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's been the MO for this Houston Roughneck defense, is stopping the big plays, because it's happening too often now. And it's still, you still got a plus, but it was the offense that was mind-boggling to me. That first 3 quarters, he didn't score, and then you didn't get the 14 points until the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't get points on the board till there were 7 minutes and 22 seconds left in the game. You're not going to win football games that way. You're
not at all.
And the funny thing is, if you showed me the stats without telling me the teams, I probably would have said, yeah, that Houston team, they could have won that game. And look, the Seattle stats did not blow anything out of the water. DiNucci, sure, okay, he won the game, but he still put up 3 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
The offense had the chances. The defense did their job for the most part when it came down to it. 21 points. Houston should have won that game. And I think you can agree with me on that. The Bryson Allen touchdown that got called back because of I believe, a holding call.
Yeah, it could have been that was a major turn on the team, because that can kill like momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would have been a huge plus for them had it happened. And depending on what they were going to go for at that moment, knowing how Wade usually runs, or AJ Smith in this case runs his offense, it was going to either be 1 or 2 points that they're going to go for at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's a killer. But guess what? You got to move from it. We can get past. I'm glad they did. This is my thing. I'm actually glad they got a loss, because now they can regroup. But the thing is, the team that you got to regroup against is a strong, powerful rushing attack in the DC Defenders.
Mm-hmm. And, of course, the DC Defenders, for those who don't know, 5-0 after beating the St. Louis Battlehawks in the Dome in St. Louis. Abram Smith, the first overall pick of the XFL draft, I believe it was like 230 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns or something along those lines.
Something along those lines, yeah.
That's 3 touchdowns. Crazy. Crazy. And two, Tamu and Eric King, they're balling. Tamu, I've liked the stuff. I like the advances he's made since, the first weeks I saw him. Not I don't remember too much of him like this with St. Louis. I like the St. Louis version of Jordan Talmadge a little bit better.
There.
But Derek King, it's the 1-2 punch with those two. But before we talk about the DC game, what did you think about Brandon Silvers in the Seattle game? Because I actually saw a lot of people on both Twitter and Instagram after the game saying, bench Brandon Silvers, bench him. Where's Cole McDonald? We lost this game because of Brandon Silvers. I don't know what to think about that. I don't think too much blame should be put on Silvers necessarily.
You throw the ball 47 times, so you got close to a little over 50% of your passes. Got a touchdown, had an interception. Okay. Got sacked 3 times. I don't think you should just give up on him so quick. You got another game against DC. You got to see how he rebounds from that loss and handles what DC is going to come at, and you got to look at it. It was his return to Seattle, and didn't get the dub like he wanted, but I think he's going to be fine going into the game against DC. Just got to be a little bit smarter. That's what's going on with DC is smart quarterback play.
Mm-hmm.
And you got mobile quarterbacks that can run. In the case with Seattle, you have a guy that's mobile, but is very turnover prone. He had 7 interceptions, 3 of them against the Roughnecks. So that's the difference. And they just couldn't make plays when they needed to. They decided the fourth quarter to do that, and because it got difficult in those first 3 quarters, which was even more amazingly enough. But that's because we didn't give Seattle's defense enough credit. And Seattle was very prepared for the balance that they had.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of deception per se in Houston's offense. With the DC defenders, they can utilize deception when it comes to their rushing attack. So, but there's a lot of balance, and they were able to maintain that balance. That's what the key was for them, the Seattle winning against Houston.
And that scares me. Going into this week on the last Rough 'em Up edition of the Rough 'em Up podcast, honestly, I think all the predictions we sort of made sort of came true. I remember saying I'm going to be mad if we go scoreless for 2 quarters. And look what happened. We went scoreless for 3 quarters and we lost.
Exactly.
I sort of got flashbacks of that San Antonio game when we couldn't score. It's like our offense just goes in a cold spell. And now I'm worried without Jontre Kirkland, who's going to step up? Because as much as we spread the wealth in this offense, Jontre Kirkland was the guy. I mean, hell, he had the passing touchdown. He was the guy,
Right.
I want to see someone else step up. And I'm looking at Deontay Burnett for that, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yes.
I think someone's going to need to step up, because what we saw against Seattle, it looked like we didn't know what we were doing without a corner piece of our wide receiver core. Are you worried about that? Or do you think it, or is that a thing we should even be worried about, A-Train?
Yes and no. Yes, for the simple fact is you're losing your top receiver. But you also have other weapons to utilize. You got Burnett and Bird, and then the emergence of Justin Smith from last game. He had 63 yards and a touchdown. That's going to be key. They're going to need him to jump in with this receiver core and to make plays against DC that has a very tough secondary. You kind of understand it. Michael Joseph is great in coverage, and if you dare try to throw his way, he's going to make a play on it. So Silvers is going to have to be smart when it comes to that. Like I said, 25 out of 47 from the last game against Seattle, 227, touchdown and a pick. It's all about being smart with the ball. I know he wants to launch it a lot, and AJ Smith wants that type of offense. But this is a DC team that has a front seven that can rattle you a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to have to get the ball out quick. And even if that means getting the ball out to his running backs, got to do something that can keep the chains moving forward.
And where you're talking about Michael Joseph, every single quarterback he's played against, they've struggled against him. AJ McCarron in both games, picks to Michael Joseph. One was a pick six in that first game that they played against each other, and then the game-sealing pick in this last week. I'm nervous. I don't know if Brandon Silvers. I don't know if he can. If we had PJ Walker in at quarterback, okay. This is going to be an interesting matchup, but Silvers, he's going to need to have the best game, not only of the 2023 season, but of his spring football career. This needs to be his best game between the AAF, the Spring League, XFL, whatever. This needs to be his best game. And I also think this is an opportunity he needs to realize to prove people wrong. Because I'm seeing people are still doubting him. Even through the first 4 games, he was putting up MVP numbers. All it took was this one game, and people are already doubting him. So as a Brandon Silvers fan and supporter, he needs to prove people wrong. This is a chance for him to go into Audi Field on Monday, lead a offense without Jontre Kirkland, who just came off the first loss of the season and in franchise history, and to rebound and win the game. This is a chance for Brandon Silvers to really step up into that leadership role where I know, and I think where he can be. We know what he can do. He's going to need to perform at that level. There's no other choice. I
will dial back a little bit, Cullen. I don't even think he needs to have the best game. He just needs to have a smart game. Like, you got to be really smart, because DC is going to lurk anytime that the ball is thrown in the air. So you got to really, I'm not saying be conservative, but know your spots. Know when you can go deep. Know when you can make dunks. And if you need to rush, run the ball, you need to keep the front seven on their toes. You keep, or I should say, keep them on their heels at this point. Because right now they're getting just about whatever they want. They have given up big plays themselves. Don't get me wrong. This DC defenders gave up a 50-yard touchdown to Stephen Mitchell, the Battlehawks. So that is, big plays can still happen, but it's a matter of when and when you see it. And make sure Brandon, when he sees that he's able to make the play and it's efficient. It's got to be efficient and smart. That's the best way to beat this DC defender team, because right now the biggest nervousness for Roughneck fans is, can that front seven slow down that rushing attack? That's going to be the big key. Can you slow it down? Because the thing is, you don't know whose number is going to be called, whoever's in the game. They'll let you know what we're about to do, and you still can't stop.
You got 3 guys in that rushing attack: Tamu, King, and Abram Smith. And even they have other running backs too, who they do hand off the ball to. But with that being said, I understand that San Antonio is nowhere near the rushing attack that DC has. But, this season we've had a pretty good history of limiting that rushing attack. But again, we haven't played the DC defenders yet, and we haven't played Abram Smith, who just put up over 200 rushing yards in a single game. So I am worried about that. But the funny thing is, I'm not even too worried about the defense, really. I think we can perform somewhat. I think we'll perform pretty well against the DC offense. Our defense will, but I'm just so worried about that offense. I'm so worried about it.
And that is a lot. It's a lot to worry about, because even if you stop the run, there's a great chance that your quarterbacks can still make plays in the air. De'Aaron King, they don't throw for a lot of yards, but if you're able to stop the run, they're going to be able to do it in the air too. And a guy like Lucky Jackson could be a big X factor for them in this particular game. So I know that's been their primary target. But if you stop in the run, you got to make it. You got to make it where you're causing chaos for their quarterbacks. But that offensive line has been so strong that they're able to withstand anybody that they were able to withstand anybody that tries to break it, and they can't. So I have to tip my cap to DC so far with how they're able to withstand with this offensive line. They're able to gel, and Reggie Barlow and even Fred Koss not getting a lot of credit here. Not getting a lot of credit as offensive coordinator, but he is very deceptive. He is making any coordinator in this league look like fools. And let's not forget who their defensive coordinator is. It's Greg Williams. Greg Williams is chaotic. He's a little menace. So that's where the nervousness really kicks in, because you have a coach that's ready to tear heads off at any cost. So, yeah, this is a excuse the pun, a rough game coming up for the Roughnecks.
Yeah, it is. That was a nice pun, by the way. That's a very nice pun.
This is a rough game that's potentially coming up for these Roughnecks, man. So, whew, I can't even fathom. But it's a Monday night game. It should be a good one.
It should be a good one. We know the Beer Snake will be out. We know the Lemons will probably be out. And that DC crowd, they know how to show up. They know how to show up for their team. Now, I know one thing I'd like to see. I want to see more of the running game. I want to see more of the running game. It was against the Guardians. As soon as our offense started to become our passing game started to slow down, become stagnant, we went to the running game. And it opened up the flow of the offense. I want to see more, whether it's Dejon Lee or Max Borgi or Bryson Allen. I want to see more rushing. Is that something you want to see a little bit more of, or should we just keep the same game plan that we're having?
If you want to throw off DC, you got to have all aspects to make this work. So that means you got to utilize the running game. Maybe you start it earlier than you do before. You don't pass often. Maybe you can start passing, and then if that comes to we get first downs and things, then start rushing the ball, because you want to throw off DC's defense to make them think, okay, all right, they're passing this time. No, they running the ball. No, they running the ball. No, they pass it. You want to confuse the defense. You want to confuse Greg Williams, because Greg Williams is like feisty. And he's like, I'm going to get you however I need to get you. You need to find a way to confuse this DC defense, because if not, Houston is going to be in for a long, long game on Monday night.
And because that DC defense, too, I loved how ESPN, by the way, shout out to ESPN. I feel like they've been doing a great job on their broadcast. And I've really just been enjoying how they've been taking us more inside the game at like the beginning of the games. But yeah, the DC defense, I was watching that was a few weeks ago, that last second movement of the defense catches these offenses so off guard. What you see before you snap the ball, more than likely it's not going to be the same thing you see when you're looking to throw the ball. And I'm just, it's worked well against AJ McCarron. AJ McCarron's he's been a great quarterback in this XFL. It's worked against a lot of talented quarterbacks in this league. But like you said, Arlington, it has to be a smart game. Even for the offensive coordinator, AJ Smith, he's going to have to play calling is going to be crucial in this game too. You can't rely so much on the air raid offense this type of game, because DC, they're a complete team. From what we've seen so far, they have the offense, they have the defense. And another thing we didn't talk about too in the Seattle game, the Seattle special teams played great. That's a thing I forgot to mention. But with that being said, second half of the season, Arlington, what do you expect for the Roughnecks to finish off the season?
They can get 3 wins in the second half because that DC is going to be a tough game. If they pull out a win, it's a plus.
Yeah.
I think they can knock off the Battlehawks in week 7. That's my team, and I think they can beat them. San Antonio, I think with the problems that they're having right now, same difference. So they'll probably get another win there.
Mm-hmm.
They could definitely do it again. The final game, this home game against Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I think they can pull off with 8 wins this season. They can pull off 8 victories. Because they end their season in Arlington, and even though Arlington is second place right now, it could be back-to-back weeks we're looking at for come to playing in the South Division playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to be the representative of the South? After that game, they might have another game, but it'll be in Houston because the top spot will get the home field advantage.
Thank God.
So it's interesting to see what happens with that. I think 4-1 is what we're looking at potentially for to close out the year.
Yeah. It's doable. We've beaten San Antonio before. We've beaten Arlington before. And I'm sorry, any San Antonio Arlington fans, I haven't been impressed with the teams, either of them, at all. I believe that Houston is no doubt the best team in the South. I am a little nervous, possibly, that hopefully if we do lose against DC, hopefully that doesn't affect how we play against teams that we know we're better than. Hopefully it doesn't bring any bad energy or bad vibes into the rest of the season. But I agree with you. 8 wins is totally doable. And we're still contenders for that XFL title. I think this team, the expectation should be getting to that championship because it's so doable. They can get to that championship. Don't
be mad if you're looking at if they get 7 wins. Mm-hmm. But 6 wins, you might have to be concerned about because that means they're technically going on a tailspin after such a hot start, and then they're going against North Division opponents. So DC this next week, and then you got St. Louis on Saturday, the Saturday afterwards. So it's Sunday. So it'll be like a shorter week for them, mm-hmm. And then you'll have your 2 division opponents at week 8 and week 10, and then Vegas close out the home schedule in week 9. So, yeah, Vegas should be a good win for them, but don't take it lightly. You just got to keep playing your game. DC is going to be the start to see where Houston goes. I even think I'll scratch that. I'll say St. Louis will be. Because let's say Houston wins. You know what I mean? If Houston wins, then it should be a little bit easier for how you playing against St. Louis. But then if you lose, you got to make sure you get a dub at home. Got to make sure you get the dub at home. And that's where the crowd needs to be there. This is a Sunday game at 1:00 mm-hmm. in week 7. Get those tickets, folks. Like, for real.
After you leave church, head on over because I'm sure we're going to have we need to pray for that game. We need to pray for the rest of this season because
I think that'll be all right. I think that'll be going into that. Yeah, but barring any injury, I think they should be fine throughout the rest of the second half of the season. I will give Gene Harris and Trent Harris mm-hmm. Some mid-season love, man, because they've been doing an awesome job on the defensive side for sure, especially Gene, him with 5 interceptions right now, leading the XFL in that. So and I still got to give love to Brandon Silvers, man. 11 touchdowns in the first 5 games. Just because he's had some inadvertent picks, he's still been very efficient in his first half. Mm-hmm. And even though Jonte Kirkland, now everything is for Jonte. Everything is for Jonte Kirkland at this point. Win it for Jonte.
Because he brought the vibes, he brought the energy, whether it's before the games at TDECU or just being interviewed on ESPN. I'm going to miss him so much. And he's an NFL caliber guy. that's the tough thing too. So I just hate seeing him go out like that. But I think we got everything that we needed to cover. At this point, it is simply just a wait and see. And this is a test. Like you said, Arlington, we're going to see how this team responds to adversity. And two, you don't have that sort of challenge of trying to go undefeated. You got your loss out of the way. Go play football now. You're not having to live up to a 5-0 record from 2020. Go win a football game. So I covered everything I needed to say. This is a more depressing episode. I hope next week is better.
But it does have its positives. It does have its positives from it, because we still got guys that are fighting hard each and every week, and they still gonna give us hope for, because right now they still lead the South Division by a game over Arlington at this point, and the ceiling is still high for them.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they don't get a loss this week against and Arlington wins against San Antonio, then they'll be tied. But still, I think Houston. Even with that, Houston still holds the tiebreaker because they do have a defeat against Arlington. But that still being said, Houston still got it. This is still their division to win.
Mm-hmm.
Still their division to win, and I think that's where it's going to be leading to as we get to these final 5 weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm. So, folks, make sure you watch the Roughnecks versus DC Defenders on Monday Night Football in DC, Audi Field. I always love watching games there. But Arlington, if you have nothing else to say, I can close it out here and then pray after this podcast for a win this Monday.
Hey, y'all. Hey, been praying for the Roughnecks so long, y'all.
Thank y'all so much for watching. Remember, rough it up, baby. We'll see you next time.
Go Roughnecks.